Greetings, everyone. Once again, it's Mota Wase sharing with you the authentic truth brought to us by Zulu Lassan in this time, in this era. So today, the teaching I'm about to share is going to be on who is the wife of Cain. And for that, we will go in the current classical day Bible. And then after that, we're going to see in Bibèl, the only authentic Bible without any errors or contradictions. So before I begin, I would like to thank Loba, the only unique creator, to have allowed us to know the truth in this time, in this era, through Zulu Lassan. So be it. So here is going to be, where did Cain's wife come from? So where did she come from? Because there's many people out there who claim to know the truth, who try to talk about where does the wife of Cain come from, and they are trying to give theories. Oh, maybe it was some aliens, other men that existed before, so other mankind, so humanity, and so on. So for them there were other people that lived on earth before Adam and Eve, and so that's how they're trying to terrorize the wife of Cain, because in the current classical day Bible, it doesn't mention, for them it does not mention in their understanding where does she comes from. And so for that, we shall go in Genesis. And before we go in the wife of Cain, we will have to understand who is Cain. For that, we go in Genesis 4:1. It says this in the current classical day Bible: Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." So here in the current classical Bible, it says that Eve became pregnant and she gave birth to Cain. And then after that, he says, she said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." How did Eve, in the current classical Bible, knew that she had the ability to give birth to a man, to a person? Where did she learn that? We have to understand that it was a spiritual revelation. She was taught that spiritually as well, that she had the ability to conceive. And she said, "With the help of the Lord." Now, what will that represent, with the help of the Lord? In Job chapter 10, verse 8, it says this: "Your hand have made me and fashioned me." So you have to understand, behind, we know that behind the creation, behind the birth, there is a mechanism that is in place. And it's also a spiritual mechanism. We'll enter into that more later on with Bibèl, to try to explain to you exactly what does that represent when they say the Lord, with the help of the Lord. Genesis chapter 4, verse 2. Later she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd while Cain cultivated the ground. So in the current classical Bible, we have to understand that Abel was the shadow of the things to come, because he was a shepherd, and we know that Christ also was a shepherd, and he was the good shepherd. So as you see, Abel was the shadow of the things to come. And if Abel represented a shepherd, what was Cain? In Psalms chapter 139, verse 15, it says this: "My bones were not hidden from you when I was made in secret, when I was formed in the depth of the ground," in the depth of the earth. So Cain cultivated the ground. And we have to understand, in the current classical Bible, we know that the first man was made from the slime of the earth, from the silt of the earth. So the verb, so the word did work on the ground to form the first man. Now in Genesis 4:3 says this in the King James Bible: "And in progress of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord." So in the current classical Bible, Cain brought forth an offering to the Lord, to that Lord. And what will that offering represent? You have to understand that offering will represent the tithe, or the tit. So that will be basically what was given to, for example, even in the Bible, to the priest. So it was supposed to be usually 1/10 of what the people were cultivating that they were giving to the priest. That was the shadow of the things to come once again. In Genesis 4 verse 5, King James Bible, and Abel he also brought of the firstling of his flock and of the fat thereof. So Abel here is the first person in the history of the physical that killed someone, because he killed the animal. He is the first one to have committed murder physically on earth. Because when they say he also brought forth the firstlings, in the King James Bible it said the firstlings of his flock. So when they say firstlings, that means many. So in the current classical the Bible is many that he brought forth of his flock, of the fat thereof. What is the fat? How do you get the fat from the animal and offer it to someone? And offer it to the Lord in the current classical the Bible. That means you have to cut the animal, you have to kill the animal, you have to cut it open and take the greasy part. That's what Abel did. And you can also research when you type animal sacrifices. You will see they cut the animal, they kill the animal, they offer it as a burnt sacrifice. They often burn the animal. They selection certain part of the animal that they burn, that they give. And that's what Abel did. He killed the animal and he offered it as a sacrifice, as an animal sacrifice. And we know, even according to the current day Bible, animal sacrifice is not something that is good. It's not something that is tolerated. It's not something that is according to the law. It's not something that is that was recommended to do. So Abel was going against the law by killing an animal, because we know that every animal belongs to God. So in the current classical day Bible, even so, if all the animals belongs to God, then why did Abel had to kill the animal to then offer it to the same God that created those animals? It makes no sense. So that's why what the action that Abel did was already a crime that he committed. If Loba allows it, in the future we will dive into further of what surrounded that scene. Why did Abel kill the animal? Why did Cain also kill his brother, and so on? But here we're going to focus on a little bit of their history and the wife of Cain. In the New King James Version, it says Abel, so that's still in Genesis chapter 4 verse 3. Abel also brought of the firstborn, so here is not plural, so it's only one, firstborn of his flock and of their fat. So the firstborn of his flock, he also brought the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And the Lord, he says here, and the Lord respected Abel and his offering, comma. He says here, the Lord respected Abel and his offering. So the Lord of the Bible respected the blood that Abel shed. He liked that animal sacrifice. Who was behind that Lord of the current classical day Bible? Who was that Lord? Who was that so-called God? And why did he like blood offering so much? Why did he like animal suffering? Why did he like and approve the sacrifice of the animal? So already there's something wrong surrounding that scene. In Hebrew chapter 11 verse 4, in the English Standard Version, it says this: by faith Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain. So according to the current day Bible, it was more acceptable to kill the animal and give it to the so-called God than to simply take the fruits. You see, there is a misconception here. There's something that doesn't add up. How is it acceptable to kill an animal, a living being, and then to offer it to so-called God, what does that God gonna do with it? So he's gonna smell that burnt offering and he's gonna like it. He's gonna enjoy. So that's gonna please him? Is that what the current Christian have accepted? Is that what people in their churches have accepted? That God like burnt offering, like the blood sacrifice? I mean, that's sorcery. That's witchcraft right there. That's witchcraft. So he rather you kill the animal. And why then aren't people doing that today? Killing animals and offering it as a sacrifice. So did he change his mind? He accepted it when he was able, but now he no longer accepted. Even in the current classical day Bible, you have to understand animal sacrifices are not accepted. In the New American Standard Bible, it says this: but for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. So Cain became, so that's in Genesis chapter 4, verse 5. In Genesis 4, verse 5, New American Standard Bible. But for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. So Cain became very angry and his face was gloomy. So Cain didn't like that, according to the current day Bible. He understood that something was wrong. What's going on here? He killed the animal. His brother killed the animal, burn it, give it as an offering, and that pleases the Lord. But then I take something good, the good fruit, and it doesn't say here that the fruits that Cain gave were rotten. They were good fruits. They were in good condition. So why was his offering refused? Already, Cain has understood that no, something wrong just happened here. Something that doesn't add up is going on. But we shall talk more in depth regarding this scene if Loba allows it in another video. But in Genesis chapter 4, verse 6, it says this: then the Lord said to Cain, why are you so angry? ? Why is your face downcast? Genesis 4, 7. If you do what is right, you will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. So here in the current classical day Bible, you have to understand that the sin that is crouching at your door, that was at the door of the spirit of Cain. So that the sin, so that will represent Satan, was there crouching, was waiting for that door to open so he could act. So that door is the door of the spirit. But in verse 5, he says, in verse 6, he says, then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? So they did not know in the current classical of the Bible what just happened, what just took place, how he refused the offering, and that made him angry. So already, is this too different? Who is the Lord that came in and accepted the offering and disregarded Cain's? And who is that Lord? In the current classical of the Bible, they'll act like it's the same entity, or it's the same Lord, is the same that came in and then say, why are you angry? So what's going on? Genesis 4, verse 8. Now Cain said to his brother Abel. So Cain was already you have to understand, he was already thinking on something else. He was planning, he was angry at what took place. And he was planning something. He said, now Cain said to his brother, let's go out to the field. While they were in the field. Let's go out in the field, period. While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. So Cain took the life of his brother physically. So he killed him physically. So in Genesis 4:7, the Lord of the Current Classical Day Bible says that if you do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. So that Lord told him that you must dominate the feelings, what you're feeling right now, the emotions, all that. You have to dominate that. You have to control. But Cain did not control. He let it happen. He wanted to accomplish a sort of justice. And he, instead of dominating the crouching sin, instead of dominating the occult world, he dominated his brother physically and applied a sort of justice. And then in Genesis 4 verse 9, he says this: Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" ? So the Lord asked a question. "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" So here, Cain, you have to understand that he was not fazed. He didn't, at this, in the Current Classical Bible, he did not regret. At that moment, he did not regret. He said, "I don't know." So in the Current Classical Bible, he's lying, because he knew that he went in the field. He knew where he killed his brother. He knew where he left the body. He knew what happened. But he said he doesn't know. So he's lying in the Current Classical Bible to that Lord. "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" ? Now he's asking question. He's trying to justify, to ask, to say, as if he did nothing wrong. He say, "Am I supposed to be his guardian? Is that my responsibility?" So you see, Cain was in another form of dialogue. He was really, people will say in the world, they will use the phrase, this person has a mind of steel, or something similar. So that's the type of mentality that Cain had in the Current Classical Day Bible. He had no remorse at that point. So he ate a sort of solid food that, for him, what he did was okay, and for him, he was justified. In the Current Classical Day Bible, he says he ate solid food, but it was very dangerous. It was very dangerous where Cain was. Where what happened, what took place, his feelings, the way he was thinking, the whole thing, it was something else. And Cain, we have to understand, had a particular nature. In Genesis chapter 4 verse 10, the Lord said, "What have you done?" ? "Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." So, something was going on in the spiritual. Something was going on. And because in the Current Classical Day Bible, it says that the phrase was given, meaning the words were given to Adam, that if he ate the fruit, he is going to die. But then Abel is the one that dies, that was killed, because that wasn't the plan. That wasn't what was supposed to take place. But because of various circumstances and actions, it took place. Genesis 4:11. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened his mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. Genesis 4:12. When you work the ground, He will no longer yield his crop for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. So that was his punishment. Genesis 4:13, New International Version, it says this: Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Period. So here in the current Classical Day Bible, Cain is saying that it's too much. His punishment is way too much. Is not for him. It wasn't proportionate to what he did. You know, when Adam and Eve, they ate the forbidden fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, and they were punished. They did not say that, oh, our punishment is too much, we cannot bear it. But Cain says, my punishment is more than I can bear. So he received a spiritual revelation here. Why? Because when Satan did fall, he did not, like I've made the teaching, I've shared with you the teaching, he did not fall alone. He did not fall alone. There were other fallen angels as well with him. And when Adam and Eve, when they fell, they were together. So they were both. Because we know in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, it says this: the Lord God said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable to him. So Cain knew that. He had that revelation, that spiritual revelation, that is, it wasn't good for his condition to be alone with his thought, to be alone with with his punishment and all he did, all that took place. Proverbs chapter 28 verse 17. If one is burdened with the blood of another, he will be a fugitive until death. Let no one help him. So this is according to Proverbs. And Cain understood that. He knew that, whoa, I cannot bear that in the current Classical Day Bible. He says this in Genesis chapter 4 verse 14. Today you are driving me from the land, period, comma, and I will be hidden from your presence, semicolon. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. So according to the current day Bible, who is that whoever will find me? You have to understand that according to the current day Bible, that whoever, it's his brothers, is the descendant of Adam and Eve. It's going to be the animals. It's going to be because we know there's also the occult world, meaning Satan and the fallen angels. So according to the current Classical Day Bible, that whoever, those are his brothers, because later he knew that is going to take place, that Adam and Eve will have a descendant, many other children, and that's that whoever. And we know that even the animal kingdom was also affected by the fall of Adam and Eve. So the animals became wild. They became enraged. They changed their nature. So they became dangerous. They could attack now. And that's what he says, that whoever finds me, that means if there's other people, or if I don't have the protection and there's other people, meaning other animals or or let's say even in the spiritual sense, if there's spiritual entities, meaning the fallen angels that attack him, if he doesn't have the protection, he will perish. That's why it says, today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wandering on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. So that's according to the current day Bible. But we'll give you the verse in Bibèl, whoever really is. Because as you know, many fake pastors out there are trying to say that whoever, they're trying to say maybe is what they were aliens extraterrestrial life form, and so on. People come up with so many theories that are not based on the scriptures. We have to stick to the facts. That's why in John chapter 3, verse 11, it says this: "Very truly I tell you, we speak of what we know and we testify to what we have seen." So we have to testify to what we know. And what do we know? We know in Job chapter 15, verse 19, it says this: "A wicked man writes in pains all his days, only a few years." I have to start in the verse 19. So in Job chapter 15, verse 19, it says this: "To whom alone the land was given when no foreigners moved among them." So who is to whom alone the land was given? You have to understand the land was given to whom alone? It was in the current classical day Bible, Adam and Eve. So the first man and the first woman. So Moto and Muto. They're the one whose the earth was given to, and their descendant. And amongst them, no foreigners were there. So that means there were no other type of race. There were no foreigners, because the land was given to them. It was told to them to multiply on earth. And that's what it says here in Job chapter 15, verse 19. So it could not have been some aliens, or because there's no other type of creatures or foreigners on earth. And then verse 21, "Sounds of terror fill his ears, and his prosperity the destroyer attacks him. He despair of his return from darkness. He is marked for the sword. He wanders about as food for vultures. He knows the day of darkness is at hand. Distress and anguish terrifies him." You have to understand that according to the current classical day Bible, that will represent also the situation of Cain, because he will be a wanderer, and if he doesn't have the protection, people could kill him, and he will be like a fugitive, fugitive. In Genesis chapter 4, verse 15, it says this: "But the Lord said to him, not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him." So according to the current classical day Bible, those people is still referring to the animals and the descendant of Adam and Eve, according to the current classical day Bible. Because we know in Genesis chapter 3, verse 20, it says this: "Adam named his wife Eve because she would become the mother of all the living." She would become the mother of all the living. And who is all those living? Those living are not the animals, because we know the animals were living. So the living, we're referring to mankind. We're referring to man, we're referring to woman. So Adam and Eve in the current classical day Bible, they will be, meaning Eve will be the mother of all the descendant. So all the black race comes from Eve. So all the men come from man and woman. The descendant come from Eve, come from Adam and Eve. So there's no other type of people, the others, there were no foreigner at that time. And so if Cain had a wife, so that means she was a woman. And if she had a wife, then that means that wife comes from Adam and Eve, because in Genesis 3:20, I repeat, Adam named his wife Eve because she would become the mother of all the living. And also in the current classical day Bible, in Acts chapter 17, verse 26, it says this: "And had made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on the face of the earth." So all nation of men come from one blood. And those nations, we know which type of nation we're referring to. That we're not referring to foreigners, because we know their origin. If Loba allows it, I will explain exactly why I'm specifying here. And where the others come from. Yes. So, in Acts chapter 17, verse 29 and Genesis 3:20, that in the current classical day Bible reveal that Adam and Eve are the ancestors of all men, man and woman. And they are the one, so there's no other type of creatures or aliens. No, that's not biblical. If your pastor, your fake pastor or fake assemblies are saying that, that's not biblical. We have to stick to the scriptures here. Stick to the facts. Stick to exactly. So now that's in the current classical day Bible, as I've demonstrated. So in the current classical day Bible, the wife of Cain was his sister, because all mankind descended from Adam and Eve. There's no other type of creatures or race that were created before or after. No. The wife of Cain was his sister. And now we shall go in Bibèl, the only authentic Bible without any errors and contradiction, and reveal what was hidden in the current classical day Bible. Now, we shall go in Genesis, so in Origin, chapter 4, verse 1. It happened much later that Muto is the first woman. Muto, she was black. So she's known in the current classical Bible as Eve. United with, it happened much later that Moto, so Moto the first man, united with Muto. So the first man, he united with Muto. She became pregnant. So she became pregnant and gave birth to Pongise, Cayenne, a little black man in their likeness. So he was also black. They were both black. She said, with Moto's help and the intervention of the entity in charge of birth and introduction in the visible. So that's the entity, like I've mentioned in the current classical Bible, she says, with the help of the Lord. But the truth is, it was with Moto's help and the intervention of the entity in charge of birth and introduction in the visible. I have, according to my nature, given and formed life to a mysterious little man, the intellectual principle of the very essence. She also, there's a period here, and then it says this, she also, in the same verse, she, that's Muto, also gave birth to a beautiful little girl, Pongise's twin. This is mentioned in the book of Chronicles. So you see, in Bibèl, which is the only authentic Bible without any errors and contradiction, the true history, how it truly happens, mentioned that Pongise, meaning Cain, he had a twin sister. And that's mentioned in the book of Chronicle in Bibèl. In Origin chapter 4 verse 33 says this. So therefore, that's after then after Cain, after Pongise killed his brother. He says this. So therefore, any ferocious animal or fallen entity that finds me can kill me if it no longer sees around me the sign of your divine protection. So Cain now in Bibèl says that, because in the current classical Bible is whoever, but we're going to reveal to you who is that whoever. We're going to go in depth in Bibèl. He says, therefore, any ferocious animal, so the animals like I've mentioned, or fallen entities, so the fallen angel, when Cain referring to that whoever in the truth, in Bibèl, how it truly happened, he was referring to the animals and the fallen angels. Verse 37, Origin chapter 4, verse 37. But before withdrawing from the family territory, Pongise felt sexual attraction and love towards one of his sisters, known as Godziba, because of his fault, which moreover gave birth to Bindo, in bracket, incest. So, Pongise were was in love with his sister. And you have to understand that that was his twin sister that was mentioned in Genesis, in Origin chapter 4, verse 1 in Bibèl. Verse 38. Godziba, so that's the twin sister of Pongise, was a very beautiful black woman. Strange and mysterious. She was hypersensitive and emotional, and most often hid behind a facade of insensitivity and distance. Verse 39, she sought at the same time peace and quiet, which had a beneficial effect on Pongise afterward, as it allowed him to reflect, meditate, and occasionally lean in introspection. Verse 40, Godziba was seen as a special woman. Her mysterious personality was found especially in the age of innocence, and most often with the acquisition of wisdom. Verse 41, much later, Pongise had continuous conjugal relations with Godziba, his wife. So that was who was his wife. It was his sister. So if they ask you where does Cain wife comes from, she was his sister. Pure and simple. And that's the revelation. Now, that was the teaching, and if Loba allows, we're gonna dive more in depth in the future on what really happened between Abel and Cain. Loba. Once again, all glory to Loba, the unique and only creator.